one of the things that he did while I was ill was to show me angels, and I was a person who was fearful. I was afraid of the least thing. Like at night, I'd have to have the curtains closed and my doors locked, and I just was nervous about things like that. I had no idea that actually what I was experiencing was real, and that I didn't know that I didn't need to have that. But I found out from the Lord, He would show me different things, that little things that if we fear, there's a spirit of fear that can come upon us. And anyway, the Lord used to show me angels every time I was afraid. I was on my way to work one night, and it was the first job that I had after I was ill, and I was working with mentally challenged adults. So I was on my way to work, and I went over a bridge, and suddenly I was fearful. I was totally afraid, and they had told me that there were a couple of men at this place who were dangerous. So, you know, I began to think about things like that. But anyway, going over this bridge, suddenly my car was full of angels, little cherub angels and big ones on top. And in the spirit, when you see in the spirit, you can see behind. So they were on the back of the car as well. And anyway, the car was loaded right down. And then the street that I was on had some curves in it. And as I would go around these corners, the angels would all go to one side, and then they would go to the other side. And it was so hilarious that I had to laugh. You know, it just struck me so funny. But this is the kind of thing that the Lord did to bring me out of this fear. He would show me funny things. One time we had a man visiting our house, and he had been there all afternoon. He was a singer, and he played the piano, and he had his car out front, and he was never very good at getting good jobs. He had always sung in hotels, and when he became a Christian, he didn't want to do that. So anyway, he was at our house, and the neighbor called and said that car out front has its lights on. He might want to turn his lights off. And he had been there for 4 hours, and he said, "Oh, and my battery's low." So I said, "Oh, well, we'll just pray about it, you know." And I never thought until after that if he was there 4 hours and his battery was low, wasn't it amazing that his car, that the lights were still on? Anyway, as we prayed, the Lord showed me angels, and it was so funny because all you could see was the back end of them, bent, one in the front and one in the side of his car. So I knew he was jump-starting his car, right? And but anyway, things like that with the angels. Where the fear was concerned, one time we were on our way to church, and we were going through a snowstorm, and I still, from the disease, had trouble with cold. So I was really concerned that we were, you know, going to be in the ditch because there was a storm that you could only see the tops of the telephone poles. And so I was praying that the Lord would keep us safe. And then he showed me an angel on the front of the car. It looked like a he, and I know there's no gender, I guess, with angels, but he sat on the front of the car with holding his knees up, and he had what looked like a chiffon scarf rolling out in the wind, but it was to comfort me so that I would know we're safe, we have help. And it doesn't happen overnight that you become the way God would have us be, But I've noticed that over the years, he has definitely changed my way of life, and I've grown to love him and know that he's there for me. And I've seen so many answers to prayer, and different people that I've told about the Lord. I worked with a fellow who, where I worked, and this is the same place that I was at when I saw the angels there on the way to work. I was telling him how I had seen these angels, and actually, as I walked from my car into where I worked, it was quite a long walk. I had about 10 angels ahead of me and 10 behind, and the front ones went around the place that I worked, and the back ones went around the other way. And the verse, the angels of the Lord encampeth round about them that serve him, came to my mind. So he over the years, he has really helped me to know that they are there and they are helping us, you know. And I started telling about a fellow at work who was not a believer. I told him about the fact that we do have angels, you know, and he was on his way home going down the 86 highway in Waterloo. It's quite a busy highway, and he fell asleep. And suddenly he woke up and he looked out beside his car, and there was an angel flying along beside him. So he was convinced that God really is real and began to serve the Lord. And I've seen him recently, and he's still serving the Lord. That was 20 years ago. So different people have come into my life. I had a young boy who went to school quite near our home. And so I invited him over for lunch, and in telling him how the angels are there for us and they help us, it so fascinated him that he started to go to church, and he went off drugs, and to this day he still is a Christian. So God has used this kind of thing in my life to help me tell others he's there and he's real. And he does want to help us. And one time I was out for lunch with my mother, and she said, I want you to go to the hospital and we'll pray for my cousin who's in there. Well, I knew that her cousin was in there with cancer. So suddenly I thought, oh, brother, you know, I wish I had prepared a little more for this. So she had some shopping to do, and I said, well, you go and do your shopping, and I'll wait for you at the hospital. So I was parked quite a ways from her, and as I walked over where she was, two large angels were behind me. I could feel something behind me, and then I saw in the spirit, which is like a TV screen, myself from up above. And these angels were at least 3 times taller than me, and they were so big. And then I saw up close, the wings started about here, and I saw a little picture of what they were like, and they were like little thin feathers all down. You know, it was just so interesting to me. And anyway, we went in and prayed for this girl, and she was actually awake, and her mother told my mother later that she hadn't been awake for days. So God really was able to minister to her. I wish I could tell you that she got healed, but that wasn't his plan, I guess. When our kids started driving, I was quite worried about them, especially our daughter. She took her about 3 times to get her license. And so as she backed out of the driveway the first time, I was sitting in the living room and I said, oh Lord, just look after her. And he showed me that there were 4 angels on top of her car. And as she took off in a hurry, they all went like this. But this is how he was with angels. They were so funny. When Mark, our son, started driving a motorcycle, it was the same thing. He was taking off on his motorcycle, and I said, oh Lord, just look after him. And here was this angel on behind, you know. And so often they were just hilarious, you know. But the Lord really, I believe he has a sense of humor, and he wants us to have fun too. He's not just, he's not just, what's the word, boring. Yeah. If you're dealing with fear, the word says, and this is the scripture that I read that healed me, you can't go to heaven if you fear. So I thought at the time, he must have made provision for us to put that in his word. So then immediately, it was the word that healed me, and I suddenly was healed from it. I just no longer had times where I was in fear. I can remember walking up steps that you could see through, and it was like a patio on the back of a house, and you could see through that. Normally that would really make me scared, but I didn't even feel any fear at all, and I thought, I am healed. Yeah. I tell you these stories about angels not to show off or anything like that. I tell you because we all need to know how much help the Lord is to us and how he provides help when we need it. And he's there for you. He's there all the time waiting for you to do what he would have you do and be involved in his kingdom, because it's so worthwhile. And I have found him in my life to just be everything I need at all times.